Well, it's nice to see this group of people here today. How many of you were at UCLA for at least part of yesterday? So I know the context within, that's fabulous. So those of you who were at UCLA yesterday were treated to a, in my opinion, remarkable display of conversations both between industry people, between academics, and then the intersection of those two sets of concerns regarding media and culture in contemporary China. The main focus was on TV and film. Today we're extending that to the subject of theme parks, in part because our distinguished guest here, producer Zhang, has been involved in theme parks related to his television sets as well as another major project, and it seemed a really special opportunity to bring together producer Zhang with some distinguished members of the theme park entertainment development industry here in Los Angeles. So I'll briefly introduce our 5 speakers. It will be each of them will have a brief presentation about their involvement with theme parks, and then we'll have a conversation between them about some of the challenges and opportunities they see in theme park development as it takes place in China, in other parts of Asia, and globally. At this point, I don't think producer Zhang needs much of an introduction. Zhang Jizhong is arguably the most well-known producer in China today. He's becoming increasingly well-known internationally. As Stan mentioned, he has a run of over 20 TV serials, each of which has been both a popular success and a financial success. And what I stress is the degree to which he is one of those individuals who's deeply committed to the extension and promotion of Chinese culture in the projects he chooses to develop. Those have principally been within China, but now include, over the past 2 or 3 years, the development of an English language feature-length film drawn from the Monkey King novel, for which he has a distinguished American screenwriter presently working. So Professor, well, actually in Chinese, one of the nice things about Chinese, if you're in education, is that as a mark of respect, everyone is teacher. So in fact, in Chinese, producer Zhang, one thinks of him as, or can address him as Zhang Lao Shi, and my brain is still tired from last night, and I slipped languages there for a moment. In any event, so that's producer Zhang is our honored guest. I'll introduce people in the order they're in the program. Our second speaker will be Bob Weis, who's Executive Vice President of Walt Disney Imagineering. It's difficult to imagine a more distinguished, a person who has had more to do with the development of theme parks and related kinds of activities in our region. Bob has worked not only here in California, but his work is very international, from Tokyo to Paris, New York, London, Sydney. He has a background in entertainment, architectural design, clearly great skills in working with diverse kinds of people. Currently at Disney Imagineering, he's responsible for developing the content of new media, new technologies, new platforms for entertainment, and their international expansion efforts. In addition, he's in charge of Disney Shanghai, as well as with the extension and development of the Disney resort here in California. Our third speaker is Brent Young, who is the principal and creative director of Super 78 Studios. Brent has developed and produced award-winning entertainment and educational experiences in a variety of settings. In Singapore, in Busch Gardens, in the Happy Valley theme park in Shanghai, in SeaWorld, closer to us here in LA, in a variety of venues. The Super 8 company works with digital media, animated content for both movie and broadcast industry. He has a long list of credits in that area. Our fourth speaker, I have these things in the wrong order, will be my colleague from UCLA, the Anderson School. Not only is there a divide between USC and UCLA, but the Anderson School and the rest of the campus, we rarely get to see each other, even though we're only a parking lot apart. So it's nice to have Professor Zhang join us today. Zhang is an expert in consumer behavior and marketing strategy. He does work consulting with a variety of firms, and in particular, he has expertise in working in various international markets, including China. And so we welcome his observations on how theme park development in China will take place. I think then the last person to be introduced, but hardly the least, is Tom McLain, who's a partner at Arnold and Porter law firm. He specializes in international business transactions and indeed entertainment law. Tom has a long, a distinguished background in working in theme park developments. He was involved in the Tokyo Disneyland project, the first major, I think the first major Disneyland project certainly in Asia. And he has subsequently worked on projects in China, India, Korea, Singapore, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Jordan, Qatar, I mean, most parts of most continents. He's both represented and negotiated against most of the major Hollywood companies, Disney, Universal, MGM, DreamWorks, Animation, and Paramount. I mentioned he has both represented American firms, Hollywood firms, and he's represented the parties with whom they've worked overseas, and therefore has a rich set of perspectives on those processes of negotiation. In any event, this is a distinguished panel. I hope you enjoy this morning's conversation. I'm going to ask Producer Zhang if he wants to make some opening remarks and ask each of the panelists in the order I introduced them just to make some few remarks, and then we'll start a conversation.
谢谢。让我来讲呢，就会耽误点大家的时间，因为我不能够说英语。
Sorry, I have to take everyone's time because I don't speak English. Sorry.
因为呢，昨天呢我们是谈电视剧啊这些东西，那今天呢，我知道这个主题呢是在谈论我们中国的主题乐园。
Yesterday we focused more on TV series, which I think I have more say. Today I know we are focusing on Chinese theme parks.
中国的主题乐园呢，其实呢发展呢都比较的畸形。
Well, I think it is a deformality for the Chinese theme parks.
大部分的投资者其实不是为了发展主题乐园，更重要的是拿到土地。
Because more investors, they target more on the land acquisition instead of theme parks.
尤其是你可以说它像个公园，比如说刚才那位小姐看的那个什么体育公园啊，等等等等。实质的问题呢是拿到土地。
Although you may say parks, as that lady just presented, it's a sports park, but I think they focus more on the land.
真正做到能够形成一个主题，作为这样的一个像 Disney 或者是像6、7公园 Six Flags 或者等等这些个公园，在中国呢，应该说原创是非常非常的少。
It is very rare for you to see actual themed parks, just like a Disneyland or Six Flags. There is not much origin.
而且呢，在中国大家都知道，知识产权是很难被保护的一个东西。
And also we know that PR rights in China is very difficult for you to protect.
当你有一个想法需要准备实现的时候，会有很多人跑上来说，他原来也是这么想的。
Whenever you have a good idea, someone will come up to you and say, "Oh, I thought the same."
比如说，我在2006年的时候呢，我要拍那个电视剧《西游记》，那么这个呢，引起了我一个很大的一个思考。
For example, in 2006, I was thinking of produce this TV series based on Journey to the West. It gave me a lot of thoughts.
在这个前15年前，我18年前从拍摄《三国演义》 到我拍摄完成了这么多剧里边，我在全中国一共建立了11座影视城。
Since 1998, when I started producing the Kingdom of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I built 11 movie cities in China.
这11座影视城，他们都成为了旅游的新的热点。
All the 11 movie cities become the hot spots for tourism.
但是对于我来说，它不是一个成功的主题公园的例子，它只是为我拍戏立下了功劳。
But for me, they are not successful theme parks. They are just serving my production.
我真正的思考是要考虑要拍摄《西游记》。
What I really want is to produce a TV series of Journey to the West.
那如何形成一个产业链？如何用我们中国的文化元素去建一个能够和迪士尼对抗的、比美的这样的一个乐园？
What I really want is using this as starting points and to build a real Chinese theme park which can match Disneyland.
因此，我呢拿着一个摄像机到全世界的主题公园都去看了一遍。
So I carried a video camera and traveled around to see all the theme parks around the world.
尤其让我特别感动的是沃尔特·迪士尼本人。
I was really moved by Walt Disney.
他创建的这个迪士尼乐园，虽然他人不在了，但是他变成了一个美国的文化象征，走向了全世界。
He created Disneyland, although he is no longer existing today, but he created a legacy and American cultural angle.
我能不能够
Oh,
向
sorry,
他
echo.
学习一下？
I really want to learn from him and maybe become someone like him.
因此，我就想要建造这样一个投资在200亿人民币以上的一个主题乐园。
So I'm thinking to build a park with an investment over 20 billion RMB.
07年我们开始做的时候呢，那是一个初步的创意。当我完成这个初步创意的时候呢，一家投资商就把我们推出去，然后他们说他们自己要搞。
In 2007, when we have the brief idea, the concept design, someone just pushed us aside and they said they will do it.
我不知道这样的问题如果出在美国会怎么样。
I don't know how you will do it when it comes around in US.
但是没关系，因为真正的创意是在我的脑子里。
But it doesn't matter because the real creativity is in my mind.
那么，他们不能把我脑袋拿走。
They can just not take off my head.
所以我后来和另外的一些团队，包括温潮先生，他今天没有到。
So later I co-worked with other groups, including Mr. Wen Chao, who is not here
重
today.
新丰富和创造了更好的一个乐园。
I enriched my original idea, and I think I have created something better.
但是做这么大的一个乐园是非常困难的，
It is very difficult to build such a big park,
不管是在中国还是在美国
no。matter in China or in US.
因此要有足够的耐心，
So I have to be patient enough
还要有坚强的意志。
and a strong will.
因此，我们现在呢，在和北京的政府，包括海南的政府，都在洽谈这些项目，因为它需要的土地面积很大，大概需要1000 acre。
So now we are talking with both Beijing government and Hainan government because this park is going to take such a big land, about 1,000 acre.
这个包括中间的部分和所有的配套。
Including the center park and also the surrounding facilities.
因此，现在很有可能的是在北京，原来 Universal 选择的那块土地上建这个公园。
So it's very likely for us to build the park on the original land for Universal.
是用我现在的创意，而
With
不
my
是
new
我从前的那
ideas,
个，不是从前的那个，
not the previous one,
不是从前被他们从我这儿拿走的
the
那
one
个。
they took from us.
我想呢，可以大家看一眼。
Well, we have 2 slides to show you.
Yes， 这是当时我做的一个。
This is a little bit old.
这是在 这是当时在湖南的一个岛上。
When we firstly wanted to build the park in Hunan, this is an island. And this is the
应该
master
是这样
plan.
的，分了很大的几个部分。
It has several big sections.
That's all.
大概就因为时间的关系，就说这么多。
And due to time limit, I will just.
我当然很希望将来有更多的人参加进来，因为这是一个非常复杂的工程。
I hope that more talents can be involved since it is a very complex project.
OK， 谢谢大家，
Thank you all.
谢谢大家听我耐心的介绍。
Bob?
Well, it's a great pleasure to be here and have is this on? A chance to meet Mr. Zhang. Hello. Oh, there it is. A great pleasure to be here and a chance to meet Mr. Zhang and see a bit of your vision. And I frankly have no doubt that you will be successful. And knowing a bit about China, and knowing a bit about China is dangerous because for anyone who's involved there, it's a bit like drinking out of a fire hose. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you have to learn. And we're in the process of that now, trying to learn about the market, learn about the culture, and I think that if our mutual mentor Walt Disney were to look at the market right now, I think that in some ways you can see that there's a sudden growth in leisure that really hasn't existed before. And I know I talked to colleagues of mine who are maybe in their mid-40s with growing kids or teenagers, and I say, well, what do you do when you're not working? And most of their answer is, we're always working. And our kids in our generation have been raised by our parents, their grandparents. The parents, both of them, have been working tremendous hours. And just now, really, you get this sense that there is a building generation of people that want a better quality of life, want some leisure, want to travel, and want to have fun. And that's really the thing that I think will drive what you're talking about and what we're doing and why this industry is taking off. I guess I have to be where I can see, so. Here, I could just stand right there. I'll stand right next to Mr. Zhang. Is that okay? So I just wanted to show a couple things about not so much what we're doing, but the process we have underway to explore this. We're Disney, so Disney's Disney, in the sense that we are not going to try to do what Mr. Zhang is doing, in the sense that he is an expert and a tremendous successful storyteller in China. We're storytellers in many other kinds of stories, and our goal is to bring that to China, to bring Disney to China, but bring it in a very sensitive and compatible way. So almost, I would say that every attraction that you may know from Anaheim or Paris or anywhere else that you may know Disney from, for the most part, there isn't a single attraction in our current thinking that is exactly as any of those parks exist. They're all being adapted. We're working on everything from the way the stories are told, how they're told, all of the language adaptation, all of the aspects of what we do culturally have to be adapted to a new market. But we're still fundamentally doing something that Walt did many years ago, which is to put you in immersive environments that an entire family and a broad audience can enjoy. And we're very excited to have Shanghai appear on this map now after 10 years of negotiation. And it is an incredible city. I'm sorry this is a little bit of a gray day, although those of you that know Shanghai will say it's easier to get a gray day than a sunny day, but it is a beautiful city. For people in Los Angeles that are so used to being in cars all the time, the use of public parks and public amenities is tremendous in China everywhere. And you can go to the Bund right now in the afternoon and see a few 100,000 people out there. But many days you can go to the Bund at 4 o'clock in the morning and see several 100,000 people out there. It is an amazing thing, and you see 90-year-old people out there doing Tai Chi, and it is a healthy, vibrant culture that is outside, and we think that bodes well for us. This is about a year ago at our groundbreaking of the project, and it was a fun day with our characters and a lot of school children from around Shanghai to celebrate getting going. This is where we're located. Is this a laser? Where we're located, the expo site was right in the center of Shanghai. We're roughly halfway between the international airport and the center of Shanghai. About 30 minutes or so, 20 to 30 minutes by car or by train, or by subway rather, to get to the site. And this from the zoning map will give you, yeah, here we go, a little bit. So this is a 7 square kilometer piece of land, of which the area that we will be engaging in first is this, which is about 4 square kilometers. There will be access off of both a public highway as well as a subway station here, and a theme park, which will be a Disneyland castle, what we would call a castle park, modeled after the original Magic Kingdom, that is about the same size as Tokyo or Orlando or any of the larger parks that you know us from. And then a recreational lake. This is all free access to the public with about a 3-kilometer lakefront edge park that goes all the way around the park. A also public retail dining and entertainment facility that sits on the edge of the lake. And then there are 2 resorts, one located here, one across the lake from the property. And then, of course, this is park. And then ultimately there are sites for additional resorts, additional perhaps Journey to the West theme park. Just marketing. and other things over.
因为我看那个 Universal 也是这样，哪儿有迪士尼哪儿就有 Universal。
John said it's the same for Disneyland and Universal. It seems you can always come together.
对，我希望有你们的时候也有我们。
So I hope someday the Monkey Kingdom can come together with Disneyland.
Write that down. Tweet that, everybody. Obviously, we start from stories that are in our library and look at the ones that have tremendous resonance in China, and they go back. Walt Disney goes back in China to the late 1930s, where Walt himself pushed for the distribution of Snow White throughout China. It was widely distributed, and for many people of that generation who are still around, it was a real watershed moment, one of the great movie moments that they remember. If you grew up in your 40s, right now you've seen Mickey Mouse cartoons on television, and now we have locally produced children's television on there. We have locally produced games, and we're doing more and more co-production in China. So I think in many ways for us, this is a integrated approach to involving the creative community of China in our product. Obviously, you can only bring in so much foreign product in the course of a year. So co-production and really leveraging talent in China is a huge part of this initiative. But also it's looking at, for an American audience, Pirates of the Caribbean started out as a ride at Disneyland, and we tend to think of it that way. For the Chinese audience, Pirates of the Caribbean is a series of movies. There's no context to it as a ride. So when we do a new kind of ride here based on one of our stories, it'll be based on what the market knows about that story as opposed to any previous conception of how it might have been looked at previously. We are doing many of the classic elements of a park, like a castle we talked about. We actually did a whole series of searches and focus groups. We brought out castles from all over the world, including China, talk to artists and designers and folks there to get a sense of how to do the castle. And it's been a very engaging process to be interactive with our audience as we work. We have traveled a lot, and we've seen just a snippet, obviously, of this huge, amazing country. We do a lot of the parks. We've been to pretty much all the parks that you mentioned. But the parks is only one part of it. Going to historic sites, going to great geographic locations that have incredible scenery, and seeing how people experience them, seeing how they dine, where they stay, how families experience it together, how young adults experience it together. We spent lots of time doing that, and we're just at the beginning of that. We'll continue to do that. And we have people who look at food, look at restrooms, look at live entertainment, look at color, look at everything to try to see how we can be inspired by how this audience experiences space. The other thing we do a lot of is, as we are beginning to develop our ideas, take them over and review them with both our partners as well as focus groups. We've done something like 60 different focus groups in different cities around China, showing ideas, seeing what seems to resonate with the audience, what doesn't. We've been pleasantly surprised, actually, by how well people know our library. However they're getting that material, they know our library very well. And that's good for the theme park business, that they know our characters. And we listen. We listen to what they are saying to us. And our partners have been out here to our offices quite a bit. I'd like to show this picture of this girls' school because that was about, I think, 2 hours outside of Shanghai that we went to visit them. And we talked about ideas, and we talked about shows, and we talked about their perceptions of our animated stories and things like that. And at one point at the end, one of the girls asked if she could sing a song, and here we are 2+ hours outside of Shanghai, and she went right into the theme song from High School Musical, and the whole group sang it a cappella. So after we were all drying our eyes, it was an amazing moment because it's just so well that they know much of our stories. The other big thing that we do is our live entertainment people are out working with schools and universities, beginning to look at the starting up of university programs for singers, dancers, theater people, as well as looking at holidays. A big part of our parks are the holiday calendar and how they adapt over time, and how we can take Chinese holidays and turn them into things that feel like they're great for Disneyland, but also feel like they're really genuine to the Chinese calendar. And that's a little bit about what we have underway.
Wow.
我希望下回有机会我们互相谈一谈，我们互相免费的谈一谈。
Ms. Zhang said he would like to talk to you someday, free of charge.
Take advantage of that. Brent?
Well, that was great, Bob. I'm excited to go there. I just wanted to say, first of all, that I'm a University of Arizona Wildcat, so I pose no threat here, especially in the football department. Looking at that earlier keynote that Jia presented to us, it really looked like my iPhoto library. I've been to most of the parks inside China that she had shown, and we have a few attractions at some of those parks. One at Windows of the World, which is right outside of the New York miniature that's there. So I had a great opportunity to travel around the country and meet lots and lots of folks, and travel to a lot of theme parks there. And I also want to hit upon something she mentioned that I think is really important, which is the idea of theme park and how important theme is to that. A theme being something, I see a bunch of folks out here that are from the industry, from our industry that are here. But theme is really the story and the basis of everything that we do. And that story has to resonate in a way that connects the guest to the park. And to that place. And what I've seen in a lot of my travels, in a lot of the theme parks, the OCT parks, that they take essentially US or Western ideas of theme parks and graft them onto their parks, essentially copying almost identically some of the things that are done. And really, what that creates is a place that has a bunch of rides. It has roller coasters and fun things to do, but there's no connection there between the guest and what they're seeing. You see at Dinosaur Land recently, I was there, and they have this old cowboy western theme amongst the dinosaurs, but there's no context for cowboys. They don't know what cowboys are. They have no idea. They'll have a western area at an OCT theme park they've got a mine train, and it looks exactly like the one at Disneyland, but no one understands what that is. So what I have been promoting, and what I would love to see, and I think Mr. Zhang and Bob, they're working very hard to do this, is bring that context, bring that theme that resonates with the Chinese audience, so you have a greater connection to the park and a greater connection to the experience. When you don't do that, it's a lot like, so an OCT park, I'll give an example. It's like you go to IKEA and you buy a picture that's got someone else's family in it, and you hang it on the wall. Right? And then you look at that and you go, I don't know those people, I don't know. But it's even worse. It's like they took the picture and photocopied it in black and white, and it's all crunchy and bitmappy, and then they put that on the wall, because it's not really a good copy. So I think what we'll see as they develop, OCT East is an interesting development, because it seems like they put a little bit more effort in design, but it's really in planning, design, story writing, storytelling, spending the time and effort and money to really do that right. And that is one of the things that I think there's been a cultural issue with, because the developers want to get it done fast, 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 and cheap. That's their goal. You know, they get the land from the government, they want to go, they want to build. I don't want to design it, just take that picture and we'll build it out of concrete, right, which is the material of choice. I'll keep my intro short here, because there's a lot of questions that I think we can get into some really interesting conversations around. One of them being development in the theme parks, the political landscape, the economics of the theme park, and really what's happening now is the government is trying, and that we're trying to slow down the development of China, because when you go there, you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands of structures and buildings that are being built. And Xishan, those villas that she pointed out, which is right next to the OCT park, there's a park right there. We also did an attraction there. Half of them are empty, and giant buildings that are just dark. They're undercapitalized, or there's no one living in them. And it's like this great engine that's just running down the track without an engineer. So I do have a video that I think I made. It's a little animation, and there was a conference that we have, a storytelling conference that we do every year down in Orlando, and a guy, a friend of ours, did this great little animation, and so I took that idea and created another one. And this is my experience, or one of my experience, and it's a very accurate experience of something that happened to me when I went to a developer who, of course, was building a theme park, and he wanted a dark ride. And for those of you who don't know what a dark ride is, it's a ride that's in the dark, and you get into a little vehicle and it goes around. And there's some really very elaborate, expensive dark rides like Harry Potter. You may know that one. So anyway, let me just get this video going. Laptop, here we go. The panda is the Chinese client.
Hello, nice to meet you. How can I help you?
I would like to build a ride.
Great. You called the right Peppo. What kind of attraction would you like?
We would like a dark ride. The best in the world.
Okay, I have experience doing dark rides. Do you have a theme?
Yes, we want the best dark ride in the world, better than Harry Potter or Spider-Man.
Do you have a story? Or a character?
No, we trust that you will make the best story for the best dark ride in the world, better than Harry Potter or Spider-Man.
Yes, I understand. We can help you with the story and the theme. What type of vehicle would you like to use?
We would like to make a boat ride with a drop.
Okay, how big do you want the drop?
We want it to be the biggest drop in the world.
The biggest drop is 170 feet. You will have to build a very big building to hold that.
Just have it come out of the top of the Dome Theater.
Dome Theater?
We would like to have a dome theater where the boats float in and watch a movie. We would also like the boats to float through our shopping mall. And we would like to create a themed restaurant where people can watch the boats. We would also like the boat to be lifted out of the water and fly over sets and animated figures.
A ride like that will take a lot of R&D design and could cost $100 million.
We have $2 million.
What is the schedule?
We would like to have a grand opening in 3 months. We have already cleared the land.
3 months. You want the world's largest boat drop, dark ride, dome theater, retail dining experience that is better than a Harry Potter and Spider-Man with animated figures, and it has to open in 3 months. Why?
Because it's our leader's birthday.
I don't think this is realistic, but because we want to do business with you, we will put a schedule and an estimate together for you.
By the way, can you break that estimate down so I can get a list of all the equipment you are using? We would like to get local companies to bid for the job.
Okay, thank you. This has been a very productive meeting.
Thank you. You are very professional. Can I get the estimate tomorrow?
So that was a very real event that happened with some of the yes, it is true. It is very, very true. Oh, I took your seat. Here you go. Sorry about that, Bob.
Thank you very much, Brent.
This one's working. And I'm very glad to be here, and thanks Bing for putting this together. I'm academic, and I do a lot of research, and I also do consulting. So just now, I think what I've heard here, I think is great. 3 different perspectives. The last one you really mentioning is you really emphasize on originality. You want something that's creative, and that was also what you were saying. We need actually our own ideas, our own themes. And you showed something actually is fantastic because of Disney. And I was thinking about, I think what's in common here is really something that has to be about the business model, like a brand, like a Disney brand, how Disney treats this brand as its own baby, and how they really grow that brand. And then the originality, and how do you be differentiation from others. So actually, I have a little figures. As a business person, I always look at numbers. And I'm going to show you some numbers, and I'm going to show you, I think, just prove that point. You need to have your own brand. You need to have your own ideas. And that is the key to success, I think. Can somebody help me to get the slides on? I think here's I'm going to just show you a little bit. I think if you look at theme parks, I think China is a great country where you can do a lot of work there, and we have some I think very good parks already. And I think the earlier Miss Zhang presented I think a very good introduction about our different kinds of theme parks. So I want to just quickly mention that if you look at the US and other places in China, and so what have I learned? And also I want to say, well, what do we want? And can we expect something in China? I think if you look at the market here, you just look at the US market, it's huge, right? You got $11 billion in this particular area. If you also focus on just most recent years, because we have the recession, and business is not good, but still there's 2.1% annual growth. Actually, it's very good. You look at the future, I think we're not quite sure about what's going to happen, and this is actually all the data is available online, and I don't have data for myself. You just look at the data online, but the key here is how do you interpret the data? How do you really use the data to make, I think, a point that is actually worth making. So it's good industry, is growing, and the question people are saying, well, really, how is the business doing? If you look at the amusement parks here, I put theme parks and amusement parks together. These are the revenues, right? Excellent, if you look at. Even, actually during the recession year, it's not bad. And here is attendance. Yes, attendance dropped a little bit during the past 2 or 3 years. But generally, I think it's on the positive. Okay, if you think about other industries, I think it got hurt more than this. The question here is, you got attendance, you got actually the revenues, you're making money or not, right? But if you look at making money in this industry, you have to look at market share, you're looking at the brands here. The biggest one is Disney, of course. And Disney has 51% of market share. And next you have the SeaWorld, you have Six Flags, all the different actually market share. I think these are all the brands in this area. Then you want to see actually what are the financial performances. Interestingly, you notice here that Disney is making a lot of money. Look at this. Each year is positive, right? This is net income. It's a lot of money. SeaWorld, very good too, right? Well, Six Flags, nah, not really. Knott's Berry Farm, ups and downs. And who else? Universal Studios, they don't have the data for us, and it's not available online. And you quickly say, well, of course, I know Disney is great because Disney has the character, has the very clear positioning, and SeaWorld has Shamu very clearly. So you have a very clear character, you have something that is the essence in your brand, that something is really working. So clearly, you think about maybe the theme parks actually are recession-proof, or recession not proof is too strong word, is resistant. It's really the well-known brands. Sorry, that's a typo right there. It's well-known brands versus less-known brands. If you're well-known brands, but you really have to have an essence. What are you really communicating with people and with the audience? I think that is one thing. So recession resistant, I think yes, they're very much so. Here is data, actually is available online too. I'm trying to load this here as possible. Maybe it's not possible. Maybe it's working. Oh yeah, it's great. You can get this online, it's amazingly good. So I'm going to click this all off. I want you to focus on, if you look at California, this is Disney. You see, look at the years, it's pretty much recession resistant, right? So it's going up, every other industry got hurt. This is pretty good. And if you look at Florida, all those parks, pretty good too, right? And if you look at Tokyo, Japan, yes, we know. It's pretty, Japan is not doing as well, but at least for the attendance concerned, and they are up there. Then you look at Paris. Paris had a lot of problems, but recent years, actually is doing well, right? Then you look at Hong Kong, the smallest Disney. Where is it? It's missing there. Did you see it? Yeah, it's very there. You see this very light green, and actually is is flat, is also going up. And so all this says here is that, well, if you have a, let me get rid of this. If you have a good brand, and if you have the essence there, clear positioning, you have characters, and you leverage actually your brands, I think you do better. Now, if you look at China, this is what I had. Again, is a snapshot from the Mintel Global Market Group. I think you guys probably have that, have access to that, or you have seen some of this. This is where you can go to the website, actually. And here's what they give us. If you look at the volume here, this is the absolute size, right? This is, you look at China, it's going way, way up all these years. And this is the projected. Very nice in terms of the absolute size. And then you look at the growth measure. Yeah, a little bit of drop, right? But still pretty good, right? You compare with other industries and other parts of the world. Then this is actually the volume consumption per capita. That means actually if you look at the entire population, you look at actually how many people have attended the park, it's really a low number. So that means a lot of people haven't been to park yet, and they really need to go to park and different parks. So this is also looking very good. However, when you come to this side, which is the market share and the branded, we call the theme parks, you suddenly notice what? 73% are the local parks. No brand names. And these are the ones actually have some brand names right here. I think the biggest one is the Happy Valley. Happy Valley, I've been there, 2004 in Shenzhen. I have 2 kids. So the first thing I went to China, is to visit Hong Kong, just go to the parks, right? I've been to Hong Kong, all the parks. At that time, Disney was not built yet. So go to the Shenzhen. And you go to Shenzhen, then later on you find Beijing has also the Happy Valley. But what you notice right here is that these are very scattered. You don't have any dominant brand there. So this back to the question here is how do you really build creativity? And how do you build differentiations? And who you are, what you stand for, is not clearly depicted. And it goes back to the point at our producer, Zhang Jizhong mentioned, is everybody trying to get the park for its commercial use. Everything is commercially oriented. It's not, I think, creativity oriented. It's not consumer oriented. It's money and money, right? That's a major problem, I think, facing China. Of course, here what it says is that you really need to have branded theme parks. And in China, any park can work? Well, not really true, because I think we saw the data right there. 80% of the parks actually failed, right? It's not performing really well. So some parks work, some don't. How do you become one of the parks that would work? It needs creativity. It needs innovations. Think about the ideas, and also think about what you are different, how you are different from others. So differentiation is really, really important. If you look at the theme parks' importance, I think this is a little bit about Disney. I find it fascinating because I do some research on Disney. And I think if you look at Disney financial performance here, this is 2007. It is right before the crisis hit us. This is actually the Disney theme parks as a contribution to the entire revenues. It's huge, about 30%. It continues doing really well. Look at that. Every single year, this is the net income, it's on the positive, right? These are revenues. Excellent. This is where they are called creativity and leveraging on the brand. Not only the theme parks doing really well, they also do very well in terms of the consumer products revenues. So you use the character, use your story, and you promote actually your brand through your merchandise, right? And also a lot of products. And that, I think the Chinese can learn. You can think about what's the brand and what other products you can bring to the table. And also they get into, I think, into the interactive media of Disney. And this is actually the future, and it also will be a very important area. Look at here. Every year they invest quite a bit. And of course, they're a little bit of loss of money at the moment. It takes a few years, of course. but I think this is the worth investing. So this is actually is also a dimension of creativity and innovations. So not just the brands, but also what other products they can bring to the table. If you look at Disney, I just one more minute, I'm going to stop here, is in Tokyo, and it's doing so well because you just know, many of, I think two of you guys mentioned about how do you actually localize also, right? Because you have to localize the parks. And Tokyo does really well, and even, I think in the darkest time of our recession, and they have the highest number of attendance. So, so now the question here is, what's going to happen in China? Right? So that's really tough. You know, there's intense competition in China, and can we make any predictions? It's tough. You know, I tried to make predictions, I think, once before. This is when Hong Kong Disney was actually was opening, and I was interviewed on Business Week. I made some predictions. I think my predictions were fulfilled, but it took a few years. So what I predicted at that time is saying, look, if you look at Hong Kong Disney, it's theme park, it's a very good brand. Now, where do you get the people? Hong Kong is full of parks already. Everybody been to different parks. So why do we do this theme park in Disney then? So where are the people from China? But how do they get to Hong Kong? It's not easy, right? You have to get the passport, little thing, you know, travel, etc. So I actually predicted something, you know, it's going to be very difficult to get customers. But sooner or later, customers will be coming from mainland China. And here's data. So this is 206. Their goal is about 5.6. So this is going to, I think you probably use this a little bit for Shanghai. But Shanghai is different, completely different city. But first year is 5.2, second year is 4 million, 4.5 million. But now what you need to focus on is the composition of the customers from which region. Originally, you see the Hong Kong local people actually are the majority. Then they switched, right? So last year, the mainland Chinese actually more. And with the international customers, pretty much even, right? 26, 23, 25, average 24.5 over there. Not changing very much. So here it's changing. So we know that China, you know, actually has a lot of clearly, this is the Hong Kong's performance here. They're not making money, but I think the gap is smaller, and they're trying to really expand it again because they really want to make sure that the park is large enough. One of the reasons the park's not doing well is the park actually, they claim that is the space not well used because it's getting crowded. But if you really look at actually, I don't have the data right here, probably with me, is very often you look at the hotel occupancy, is only the highest is 82%. So it's really not that easy. I think that has to do with how easy you can make it for the travelers from mainland China and come to Hong Kong, and what's the attraction. It cannot be just the Disney itself, but it has to be some kind of other activities, things they can buy, things they can do in addition to Disney, and they can do two things at the same time, actually get I think the attendance high, and also in terms of financial performance, you're going to be on the positive side. So, so my prediction here is that, well, in Shanghai or any theme parks in China, if you do it really well, if you really focus on the experiential product as well as the brands really matter, okay, it's experience. So we really have to say that each experience could be different. So each theme park has to be different. It cannot be all the same theme parks. Then you separate this at product level kind of innovation versus customer experience innovation then. And we probably get people just like, you know, here. When we go to actually Disney, where we're enjoying our rides, we really feel very happy. And although we ask ourselves, in the end, do we really look happy? We're all sweaty, we're tired. But we're happy. We're happy because we took a lot of photos, right? We have very good memories. And so that really says that if you do, so there's clearly the psychological reasoning behind this, is that we like to conform to the general opinion. And also, we don't want to really contradict to the I think well-known experience others have. Look at China. China is different from US. US is individualistic society, right? China is collectivistic. So if somebody says good, and everybody will say good, right? So actually, the theme parks, for some of them, can be very successful if everybody says good, because then you have the collectivistic view. If something's bad, then nobody's going there, right? So China's green market, in a way that I think that it is a good testing ground for some theme parks, whether it's going to work or not going to work. So I think in the US, very often with the individualistic, I think orientation, we tend to focus on ourselves' opinion and our self-experience. But in China, I think there's a different, completely environment, so that marketing, brand building, differentiations, I think is going to be really, really important. So I think that's what I have to say about the future.
Thank you. Well, I don't have any visuals for you because I'm a lawyer, and who wants to look at a contract? And I come from a school that has great crosstown rivalries as well, and I will forgive our UNC professor. I'm from Duke. What I want to talk about a little bit is I get into the practical nitty-gritty side of putting together these ventures. And I've been on both sides of the table. I've represented the studios and doing their projects around the world. I represented Universal at Universal Studios Japan. And on the other side, I represented Oriental Land Corporation to do the first formed theme park by a major U.S. group, Tokyo Disneyland, which, as you can see from looking at these numbers, with almost 26 million of attendance, I guess it was in 2010, is by far the most successful theme park in the world. But it almost didn't happen. In fact, I was brought in after 4 years of negotiations to find a peaceful resolution and separation of the parties that would not embarrass Oriental Land Corporation, which was made up of Mitsui Real Estate, Keisei Railway, and a couple other major Japanese companies. And the feeling was that there was a failure to communicate on both sides. And at the time, I was fluent in Japanese. I'd lived and worked in Japan a number of times, and I was brought in to come into the negotiations and get a sense of them and see how we could go our separate ways and not hate each other. And it was interesting. I sat in the very first negotiation, and I realized as I listened through about 7 hours of discussion back and forth, they had a deal, but they didn't know it. And a lot of it was communication, and a lot of it was culture, and really listening to the other side. The Japanese language is largely a language of nuance, and none of the nuance was being translated. Heading up the Disney negotiating team was Ron Kao, their general counsel, and he was talking legalese. And the legalese was getting in the way of the real bottom line of what the issues were and where the parties were coming together. And at the end of my first day, I almost got fired by my own client by going to Disney and saying, hey, look, guys, you've got a deal. But you have to understand and appreciate and trust the partner you've got. You've got huge pride. You are incredibly successful. You are the world leaders in what you do. But, you know, Mitsui's a 365-year-old company. They, too, are real leaders. They have great pride in their own product, and you have to trust them. And I went back to the Mitsui real estate folks who were leading the transaction at that point and said to them, hey, look, you have a deal, but you have to truly give Disney credit for what it's really great about and honor, you know, their traditions, help them feel comfortable that you're going to protect their IP and that you know, will be a good partner and truly a partner where you're going to work together as opposed to just doing it the Japanese way. Well, 14 days later, we had a 17-page letter of intent signed, and 9 months later, we had a signed deal, which has gone on to become the basis for the most successful theme park in the world. And that was back in the dark ages. That agreement was on legal-sized paper, and it was about this thick. And I still get calls from folks at Disney saying, what in the world was meant by this? Yeah, how can we change this? But we don't go there anymore. The traditional theme park agreement today, once you get done signing it, is this thick. And it's amazing detail, because what is really paramount to every major U.S. brand is protecting the brand. How do we protect the brand? How do we make sure that, because people are going to be coming from all over the world, it maintains the quality and the image and the reputation that we want to project around the world. And most theme park potential licensees really don't have any appreciation for this. They just want to build it, and they want to build it fast, and they want to get it done and make some money. And particularly in China, as the video was absolutely perfect for many of the things that I've seen, and I've now been involved in 5 different possible projects in China. There is this desire to get it done and get it done quick. But just look at what Bob was saying earlier. They were negotiating for 10 years before they finally came to an agreement. We're able to move this forward. The Universal Studios Japan project probably went on for about 8 years before that one got done. Tokyo Disneyland was a good 8 years ultimately before it got up and built, et cetera, and got the final agreements together. So it's a long, difficult, complex problem, and both sides need to appreciate and understand the other side, and that cultural awareness and cultural sensitivity is very important. Now, Disney didn't come to that in the early days. The biggest concession that we got out of Disney for Tokyo Disneyland initially, when we were negotiating for adaptation to local culture, was that on holidays we would allow Mickey and Minnie to wear kimonos. Otherwise, it had to be built exactly as it was in the United States, no deviations whatsoever, and we were even asked if we could please go to the government and get the labor laws changed so that the various requirements that Disney imposes upon its employees could be imposed in Japan, which would have clearly been in opposition to Japanese labor laws. But Disney's come a long way. I give you tremendous credit for the sensitivity that you're showing in adapting your product to the local scene, which has not always been the case. So there are lots of issues if you're looking at China and theme parks that, I look at it from my perspective as a lawyer and the types of issues that I find myself dealing with. Number one, the government is your partner, directly or indirectly. And it's not just the local government, it's the provincial government. And increasingly, it's likely going to be, the central government as well, particularly when you look at this directive that just came down with the focus on promoting and expanding Chinese culture, and exactly what does that mean. You need government for your permits, your approvals. You need them for your infrastructure. And basically, especially during this era of stimulation starting in 2008, when the government was throwing a lot of money out there, many real estate developers who were really looking at developing condominiums, used theme parks as a hook to try to get pieces of land, get approvals from the local officials who are in office 4 to 5 years, and they want to do something big. They want to make their mark, and that typically means building something. So right there, you've got a major conflict. You've got 4 to 5 years for an elected official. He wants a project done by the end of his term so he can move up to the next highest level. Major theme parks, especially with a foreign brand, do not get built in 4 to 5 years. It just doesn't happen. So there's an inherent conflict in their objectives as parties start off from the very beginning. Also, there's a basic thing of the Chinese think theme parks are easy. Theme parks are not easy. They don't understand that if you're building a major theme park, you're going to have 30 to 40,000 people a day coming and going. You're building an entire city. You have to build all the infrastructure to support a city that is a tiny city by Chinese standards, but it's a constantly changing city, and you've got another several thousand people there to serve those people, and you need a level of services that is extremely high, extremely efficient, well delivered on a day-to-day basis to a completely new population if you're going to meet the quality standards that a U.S. theme park is going to impose to make sure that you're meeting their quality standards. As I understand it, the design build phase alone for Shanghai is 5 years. Let alone the entire negotiation process and all the work that's gone into it up to this point for people to get to the point that they can even have a contract, which has taken much, much longer. Many issues that are very important are the basic life safety issues, the quality of the theme parks, the safety mechanisms, looking out for the best interest of the consumers that are going to be coming to the park. If you look at U.S. theme parks, the accident ratio, the accident incidence, is extremely low. Chinese theme parks, completely different, a very high accident ratio, which is just totally unacceptable to any major U.S. brand that's going to have their name attached to a theme park. So this is a major issue. You have to be detail-oriented. Now, I mean, we've all seen the incredible, incredible rise of the cities around through China and many of the theme parks and a lot of the gigantic shopping centers that when you walk into them when they're brand new are spectacular. They're gorgeous. They're truly wonderful. We'll go back 3 to 5 years later, and what do they look like? They're really downtrodden. They haven't been maintained. The quality is gone. And again, this is something that a major brand would not have its name attached to. So there's a greater emphasis on the quality of construction, the maintenance, the constant updating and renovation of a project that the majority of developers who are looking to develop theme parks in China do not think about. It's not their issue. They want to get it up, they want to get it built, they want to sell the apartments, the condominiums, the office buildings surrounding it, and they want to go on because the theme park is nothing more than a hook. A major brand, it's not the hook, it's the centerpiece, and that centerpiece has to be maintained. So there's really a fundamental difference. Theme parks are not easy, they're extremely complex. So those are just kind of some of the basic themes about how the U.S. theme park industry and how our theme park industry are different. If you want, I can throw out a couple of questions.
You want? Sure, go ahead.
And to the panel, to the audience, of things that I'm seeing, and just to see your reactions about what it all means. It was mentioned earlier we have the new 5-year plan that has an emphasis on Chinese culture and traditions. Well, I think the question is, what impact is that on the potential licensing of Western brands to go into China? Is it better, like our director over here is doing, to build something that has local content, focused on the Monkey King, taking the best of our traditions and the standards and quality of theme park design and operation and applying a local theme? Is that going to be the great success? And is that going to be the key to success in getting the governmental approvals that are required to go forward? Also in China, there's an assumption that if you build it, they will come. There's very little market analysis. Most of the market analysis done is highly inflated, and it leads to the 80%, or some would even say 90% failure rate. Again, if you build it, will they come in China? Is that a misinformation? Another thought for Western brands who potentially would be looking to come into China, especially in a large-scale theme park. In essence, the government is Disney's partner. So therefore, the government is vested in wanting Shanghai to be highly successful. Is there an incentive to slow down the entry of other Western competitors who might be bringing their products into the market? And frankly, I think there are others, many in the central government in China, who probably are not interested in seeing Western themes come in, especially in Beijing. They would rather it be local content, well done, to promote Chinese culture and traditions. Question, am I right or am I wrong? Another problem, basic lack of appreciation of IP rights, intellectual property rights, and a reluctance to accept and honor controls over the U.S. IP that would be imposed by Western licensors. So again, fundamental question, is there a basic barrier there to entry by Western theme parks, given their obsession, appropriate obsession, with the protection of their brands? So do we need major, big theme parks? Is that really good for everybody? Or is there another approach? Clearly, there's a need for recreation. There's clearly a need for people to get out and get out of their homes. But it does have to be a multi-day experience that requires billions of dollars of investment. Or can it be a 2 to 4 hour experience, something much smaller, perhaps not branded, something local, but done with quality, more like some of the themed shopping centers that we have here in the United States, where people will go and spend half a day doing their shopping, taking their children on some smaller rides, enjoying different sorts of entertainment that might be made available to them. So those are just some. Another basic fundamental problem is also Chinese companies, Chinese developers typically don't want to pay for help. They don't want to pay to learn what the business is all about. They think they know it. They're going to do it their way, and perhaps that leads to the failure rate. And maybe there's a certain education process that a program like this will help to let people understand that there's a much more complex business than otherwise might have been appreciated, and therefore an understanding that it's an absolute necessity, if you're going to be successful, to reach out to some of the best designers and people with expertise in the world to help advise you on how to put together these sorts of very, very complex cities and to make them successful.
Wow, that's a lot of content. So the exercise of being a moderator on a panel of distinguished, articulate, thoughtful, and experienced people is the exact opposite of being in a classroom with undergraduates, where you constantly try to get them to talk, you ask questions, you tell them to prepare, and it's dead silence for 50 minutes. Here you ask distinguished people each to prepare 5 minutes of comments to open a conversation, and you get a rich display of many different topics that now will be a challenge to bring together in what remains of the 2 or 3 minutes we have left that's scheduled for the session. So clearly it wasn't quite what I imagined, but I'm used to that in the other direction, as I say, from teaching. I think, Tob has just ended with a remarkable set of questions. I would, Stanley? Stan, you're in charge. Can I get 10 more? Can we go for 10 minutes? Or is that all right, Marty? We just go for a little bit? Okay. We're going to run into the lunch hour briefly because I want to give our panelists an opportunity to interact with each other. And if I may, I'm going to try to set up one way to think about relations among these different topics and link it somewhat to some of the discussions we had yesterday at the industry panel that Marty moderated. One of the themes that came through clearly for those of you who were at UCLA yesterday and attended the morning industry panel was the the issue of the movement of cultural content and the relevance of the context into which it's moved. So, and we had an interesting display of people who worked in both directions, or from both ends and from different vantage points. In the context of theme parks, one of the things that comes out clearly that's different than a movie is that you can change your theme. The theme park is not the same, doesn't have to be literally the same product in a different setting. There were, as Bob was detailing all the different ways in which they're thinking about modification, and from Tom's comments, clearly some of this may be post-Tokyo Disneyland ways of doing business, but the degree to which the product itself is not the same product, that context can be honored or engaged in ways that you can't with a movie. It seems to me we can think about that notion of cultural transfer. What I would like to add, but also one thing that came out yesterday was the degree to which, and given the recent Party Congress and the theme of Chinese culture, which Tom also mentioned at the end, I want to ask what we think both of the development of Chinese content within China, but the notion that Chinese culture and content should move out of China, as some Chinese believe. What are the notions of context and understanding that we would assume for this? Yesterday's industry panel, there was one theme wherein the notion of what would work as cultural content had to be reduced to key elements that were in some sense universal. So the notion of entertainment that travels was stripped of context, of cultural knowledge that would make a certain story meaningful, that someone recognized it as having both a foreign context and a universal content. It was to strip context away. That's one way we can think of culture becoming globalized. But the other dimension that came out was the degree to which there was a conscious commitment to the creation of content that was culturally placed, recognizably diverse, and yet communicable to other people. And so in the context of thinking about theme parks, it seems to me we can carry forward that particular theme, and in the context of thinking about the question of how modular that is, how particular some of the theme park content or techniques are. We saw from Brent's presentation the persistent capacity of Chinese, and a historian tends to see this over a long period of time, but to conflate modern with technique and to evacuate it of cultural content. I mean, it is the right, I mean, what they want is the largest vertical drop. They don't care, I mean, that is to say, it's the notion that what's modern, what's neat, what we want, what's up to date, it's evacuated of, it's reduced to a kind of technical dimension. That's something that one could argue one has seen for a long time. I'm doing something I shouldn't do. I've introduced too many things that I haven't coherently linked, and I've made it even harder for our panelists to comment. So what I think I'd like to do is just invite people to reflect on what they've heard their fellow panelists say, each take 2 or 3 minutes to either move us forward in a direction or help us see where we can think about this the next time a group of people is assembled for this purpose. And I invite people, let's see, is there if people have, through voluntarism, a desire to speak in a certain order, that will work, or we can just, perhaps we can, if not, then we just go back in reverse order from which we started, so that you would be on again. You can answer your own questions first, unless someone wants to speak.
I had one thing to say about the context, and when you're speaking, Ben, no offense, but this makes me get sweaty in the palms, and I feel like I'm back in college again. I'm like,
my bad. I'm sorry.
But one of the things that was said yesterday in yesterday's panel, and that you mentioned again, was the idea that there are these universal things that we can hook into, and that we can find some sort of universal thrill or universal fear, and thinking about that, and the safety context that you put it in, traveling around China, you see that a family of 3 can ride a moped without helmets on, where the highway, the yellow line, is a suggestion, right? So the idea of thrill is completely different, right? You can't just build what we consider a thrill ride and think that it's going to be scary, because it's not. Really, there are no universal fears. There's really none. Maybe fear of rejection, but that doesn't make a good theme park ride. So, that's the thing is that you really have to explore, and you need local context. You need people that are there and that have grown up there, and you need to, as Bob has done, interview and focus group. But I think in a way, where we're not even involved, because just the mere fact that I'm involved or Bob's involved can skew the answer completely to just, yeah, absolutely, whatever you say, Disney's great, and I love it all. So it needs to be done in secret, in a way that they don't even know that you're getting the information out. I mean, it's true. Anyway, and then I had one thing that Alan, or Thomas, I'm sorry, that you had mentioned was the legal context there. And one thing that we've encountered is that that's really the wild, wild west there, where the paper that you write things on is basically worthless. It's the ground rules for the game, but there's no legal framework if you have a problem, so it's always a Mexican standoff at the end of the day. At least
I've actually had clients say to me, well, I don't care what they say, just have them write, give me the contract. I don't need a lawyer, I'll sign whatever they give me, because I'm not going to pay any attention anyway.
Right.
Literally, that's what they say.
I think 2 things. One, that I think coming into a country with a rich history that China has, I think we as Americans, or whatever country we represent, could approach this with some humility and some sense that we can't just plunk down what may have worked in another place here and expect it to work. And there are examples of both. I think KFC and Pizza Hut, surprisingly, are tremendously successful over there. most of us here probably wouldn't go to KFC right now, or Pizza Hut, or many of us wouldn't. But over there, they have done a tremendous job. They've completely adapted their product. They've changed it, modified the environment that it exists in. On the other hand, the Apple Store, extremely successful over there. And if you walked into that Apple Store, it's exactly like the one in here. So there's examples of both. There's examples of big companies, Walmart, and others that have come in and kind of arrogantly somewhat gone in, and they're not doing as well as having adapted. So coming in there and trying to understand where you're going and what it's about, I think is good for all of us. And I think the Tokyo example is a really good one, I think, because Tokyo is absolutely Disney. Tokyo Disneyland is absolutely Disney. And in fact, at Disney, we say that Oriental Land Company is more Disney than us, because in many ways they are better maintenance, better quality. I mean, they're incredible what they do there. But it is fundamentally Japanese also. It has evolved toward that in everything from entertainment to holidays to merchandise product. And most of its constituency is local. And they say that people literally were sobbing when they reopened after the earthquake because they were afraid that this thing that has become a cultural icon in Japan was lost, and it wasn't. So I think that's a great example. We'd love to see that happen in China, but it's a thoughtful process. And the last thing is, I think that we say that the rising tide raises all boats. So I think that people who do quality projects, was Mr. Zhang's project of the Monkey King, or a Disney project based more on Disney franchise, the quality projects are going to rise and are going to meet the audience in a quality way, and then some of the things at the bottom that are less quality, less safe, less sustainable are the ones that will fall out, but the quality will rise, and there's, I think, tremendous depth, tremendous possibility there to grow on.
And I think I just have two comments. One is that, I think I wasn't at yesterday's panel, but I think I just heard the gist of it. So it's the universal features versus the local features. And I think often, with debated topic is how much you want to adapt and how much you can generalize. But one of the things I thought, for the theme parks, what are people really looking for as customers? Experience is very important. You just want something clean, nice, easy, fun, right? So those actually all in the brand itself. So there's a service quality standard or criterions has to be met by all the different kind of parks and everything. Now you don't see that in China at all, right? Each park is different. You couldn't even actually find what you want to find. And the quality is not very good. Everywhere you go, it's always that problem. Because it's commercially oriented, they get it quickly, actually in operations, get money. And whatever comes, they care less because the policy will change. They will not be able to do what they want to do. But Disney is different, right? Disney here has teamed up with the government. It's a well-known brand. So it has a clear essence right there, and so people actually are looking up to it. So I think the universal part here is where people already have the aspiration to want to go there, like Apple. Innovations, that's where they want to go, right? KFC, what they were looking for, because KFC I've studied quite a bit, and it's more successful than McDonald's, is KFC is quick, is clean, is tasty. McDonald's is late, because the first entry in China is always actually has the advantage. And it's a clear instance where if you are the first entry, although you actually late entry in this country, you can be a very dominant. So here again is a strategy. So here's a business strategy and what you really want to position yourself as and what you communicate clearly. And innovations, I think, is important. Here, the innovation needs to be adapted, but maybe more abstract. More abstract, like fun, etc.
Yeah, I think it can go both ways. Clearly with the Summer Olympics, Beijing, China awed the world. It really made people step back and took a look at China in a different way. The opening and the closing ceremonies just blew people away, and it gave people a really good sense of the creative potential of China. And we've had some great movies that have come out of China. And part of what we find so exciting about, say, Crouching Tiger was the acrobatic part of it, the imagery, the imagination that was so different than what we see in a lot of our movies here. And I've become quite a fan of Monkey King over the course of the last 6 to 9 months, and have been reading stories online. I'm fascinated by the stories, and I think it can travel. I think that concept could be brought to the States and could be done effectively and could capture the imaginations of young children very easily. So I'll throw out a concept to you. Kung Fu Panda was more successful, in China, Kung Fu Panda 2, than it was in the United States. People in China love it. Team up with DreamWorks Animation, do a joint theme park of Kung Fu Panda and Monkey King, and I think you have a real winner that can work both in China and the U.S.
很谢谢今天这个似乎是为我召开的一个会议。
Thank you all. It seems that this is a meeting especially for me.
因为我特别听了这几位专家也好，律师先生也好，这些个创意的这个他是副总监啊，总监也好，那么他们谈到的中国的问题，我觉得我自己呢是对中国非常了解了，但是从你们口中来了解到的和知道的这些中国的问题，我很愿意把它带回去给我们那些个官员们听一听。
I really learned a lot today from all the experts and this lawyer, and also I think I know China very well, but still today I learned something different from your perspectives, and I think I'll bring your ideas to the Chinese government officials and educate them.
同时呢，我也希望呢能够跟那些投资者们也给他们告诉他们，或者让他们亲耳听一听我们这场讨论。因为这些投资者们经常会问我，一个设计就要那么多钱吗？
And also, I'd like to bring these lessons to the Chinese investors and really educate them, because they always ask me, a design can take that much money? Are you kidding? Like, they always ask such questions.
我们把别的拿过来，我们不用花钱，多好呢？
Why don't we just take it from others? It's cheap and maybe it doesn't cost any money at all.
创意算什么？
What is creativity at all?
因此，你可以看到中国的主题乐园就是没有生命力。
That's why you see all the Chinese parks, they don't have any life, and most of them just fail in a few years.
其实，这个是很多的商人他们不能够理解的。
This is something all businessmen, you never understand that.
所以就有了我前边的那个商人，他会做出这样的举动来。
That's why the other businessmen who stole my idea just like that.
因为这个规则好像是由他来定。
Because they do not play by your rules, they determine the rules.
因此呢，我是觉得这样的交流对于我们中国这样一个发展中的这样的一个国家来说是非常有必要。
So I think this exchange of ideas is really necessary for a developing country like China.
我再一次谢谢王教授和 UCLA-USC 有2个大学为此举办的这场讨论会。
Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Wong and also the 2 universities for this excellent activity.
谢谢。
Producer Zhang has given us even greater aspirations for outreach, well beyond people here in LA, reach government officials in China. That would be even a larger measure of impact. On those cheerful notes, thank you all for attending. Join me in thanking our panelists. There'll be lunch upstairs.